All right. Hey, Carlos, Tocayo.
¿Qué pasó, Carlos? Aquí estamos.
Muy buenas tardes. It's good to see you.
Yeah, buenas tardes. Es un placer estar contigo otra vez en El Paso, Texas. Aquí estoy en East LA.
Muy bien. You're one of those figures that are, or people that are, there are very few people like you. I've known you for a long time. I know you made a commitment to fighting for social justice very early on in your life, and you're still at it. You're
That's
still
right.
at it. And
I'm going down fighting. I'm going down fighting, bro, all the way.
So before I say we say a little bit of background about you, why don't you tell the people your current struggle, your current position in the struggle? What are you currently doing? What kind of things are you advancing?
Right now, I'm in the middle of fighting to get cops prosecuted for the killing of young Chicanos and blacks. We have a new district attorney in LA, George Gascon, that got office on December the 7th. We knocked out the old district attorney, Jackie Lacey, who was pro-cop, never prosecuted anybody. So I'm a member of community service organization Centro CSO, and we're allies partnership with Black Lives Matter LA. We knocked out the DA. We got a new DA who's all about reform, about prosecuting cops, and that's one of the campaigns we're working on, stopping police killings, prosecuted cops. The other big part of our campaign is promoting public schools against privatization, and of course, fighting for the rights of immigrants, fighting against Trump's deportations and demanding legalization for all.
You mentioned the CSO. That's a community service organization?
Yes, it was.
Isn't that the organization that gave birth to Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez?
Yeah. But you know, actually, they joined a few years after. The original founders were Eduardo Roybal, former congressman, Tony Rios, the Navas, the Morales families, and then they founded CSO 1947, and then Roybal ran for city council 1949. And then in the early 50s, Fred Ross recruited Cesar Chavez and trained him to be an organizer, and then Dolores Huerta joined. But, you know, they're famous, so everybody thinks that they founded CSO, but they were, yes, trained in CSO.
Trained there. How did you come into CSO?
Oh, you know what? I joined CSO in 1977 because they had a credit union, and I was facing a political arrest, a frame-up, and I went to the credit union and got a loan to help pay my lawyer. So I really felt indebted to them that they would take a chance, give a political prisoner a loan to pay the attorney, right? Even though they did ask for a co-signer, right? And then I beat the case, and then I paid the loan, and I became part of the old CSO. The original CSO, by that time, it was more into social services, credit union, DUI classes, Spanish classes, English classes. It had gotten away from organizing. So in the 70s, 80s, 90s, more into social services. But the new CSO that I'm involved in the last 10 years, we took it back to grassroots organizing and fighting for social justice.
Okay, that's your work in Los Angeles. You mentioned 1977. Let's go there. What?
Oh my.
Now I remember you in 19 it was in 1973, I believe.
73.
And it was 70.
During the FARA strike, 1972, no?
Yeah, well, you were in El Paso in 1972, and I met you in 1973 at a September 16 rally in El Paso. And we were passing out leaflets of El Plan Espiritual de Aztlán. And we handed you a leaflet, and you started talking to me and another friend of mine, and you took us to a labor organizing group that you had. But I didn't understand why from LA you went back to El Paso. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How did you find your wife?
Bueno, I was born in El Paso, pero fui criado en Ciudad Juárez. So El Paso, El Juárez, junto es el corazón de Aztlán. I went back to my roots for political reasons. I became a Chicano activist in East LA, and I faced a lot of police harassment, threats, and repression. I went to Mexico to live on the ground, but I ended up living and working out of Juárez in El Paso, Texas. But, it's a long story. Soy un niño de Ciudad Juárez a la edad de 1956. I was born in 47, so I was probably like 7, 8 years old. We moved from Juárez to El Paso, and El Paso to South LA and East LA. And, growing up in LA, I faced racism, police abuse, discrimination. And, at 19, I got involved with the Chicano movement.
At age 19?
Yeah, más o menos. I think it was 19, yeah.
So, and you're credited to being one of the founders of the Brown Berets.
I was there. I joined a group called the Young Chicanos for Community Action. I met them in Lincoln Heights because I was working as a team post director, working with street youth, and Father John Luce brought the newspaper to the center, La Raza newspaper. Started reading it. And it fascinated me. I said, "Wow, this is awesome!" Newspaper being critical of the government, of racism, of police abuse. So I started going to the church basement. I met Young Chicanos for Community Action. I joined them. Then we opened up a coffee house, La Piraña Coffee House, in 1967. And there we founded the Brown Berets. And we started, protesting against police killings, for better schools, against the Vietnam War. A whole movement came out of that area in East LA.
The Brown Berets were originally pretty much nationalist. Would you agree that they were revolutionary nationalists?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, the Brown Berets, we were angry, young, poor, working class Chicanos, right? Chicanos and Chicanos. We're just angry young people. So we were angry because of the racism we felt in the U.S., the police abuse, the discrimination, the overcrowded schools, the draft, the drugs, the poverty, the abuse that our parents suffered. We were angry. And we also had faced blatant racism where white is right, you're brown, stick around, you're black, step back. In other words, a lot of our youth were ashamed of being brown and proud, being Mexican American, Chicano, right? They wanted to dye their hair blonde and powder their skin and change their name from Ricardo to Ricky. So brown is an affirmation of being proud of Moreno es bonito, being proud of our Mexican roots and saying, we're proud of our history. And, we started also acknowledging that we were indigenous people, that we're not white. We rejected the 40s, 50s generation that wanted to assimilate and say we're white. We said, no, we're not white, we're brown, and we're proud. And, we took it a step further to say we want our rights. We started using the word Chicano. It was the word that we named ourselves. We started demanding Chicano power. So, and we started a whole renaissance of being proud and brown and demanding our rights. And initially, we thought that the problem was the white man. So I guess you could say we were nationalists. We blamed all our problems on the white man. But then we became more aware, politicized during the Poor People's Campaign, working with the Black Panther Party, with the Black Liberation Movement, to realize it wasn't the white man was the enemy, it was the system. And then we started learning about the struggle in Vietnam, in Cuba, and Latin America, and to support those struggles. So yeah, we were revolutionary And then we got introduced to socialism by the Black Panthers. They gave us the Red Book, and they talked about Mao Zedong. So we were in the beginning anti-communist, right? But that kind of broke down those barriers. The Black Panther Party, but our homies coming back from Vietnam dead or traumatized started learning about Ho Chi Minh, General Diop, who defeated the French. And we said, well, you know what? Socialism can't be that bad. If the Vietnamese want it, they won, and the Chinese, So, yeah, revolutionary nationalist.
You mentioned the Poor People's Campaign. That's a historic event. How is it that you came to be involved in it? You actually went to Washington, yes?
Yeah, we sure did. Well, you know what? In East LA, our first protest was to protest the police killings by the sheriffs at the East LA Sheriff's Station. Then we did the massive East LA walkouts in March of 1968, where students walked out for 2 weeks demanding public schools. So we got well known with the Black Civil Rights Movement. We got on the map, So we were invited by Martin Luther King, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, invited Chicanos to be in the Poor People's Campaign. Martin Luther King extended that invitation to the Crusade for Justice, Alianza Federal de Mercedes, the United Farm Workers, Brown Berets, even though he got pushback from some of his lieutenants because we did not advocate nonviolence. We advocated self-defense. So he invited us to be part of the Rainbow Coalition, the Poor People's Campaign, and then he was assassinated in March of '68. And then Kennedy was assassinated. We had, all these. 1968 was a tumultuous year. Use an English word that I hardly ever use. So yeah, we were invited. And June of '68, we got on the bus. We got the call, hey, the bus is leaving. The bus is leaving. Where? Watts, South LA, Watts. So we got in a car, a bunch of Brown Berets, a couple of cars. We rushed down to Watts, the Black community, and we saw these buses, and we jumped on the bus full of working class blacks, poor blacks, moms and kids, and then we get in the bus and we say, we're gonna be on the back of the bus. You guys can be in the front. We told we're gonna be in the back. We're the Mexicans, Chicano, we'll be in the back. You guys can be in the front. And we got on the back of the bus. And for 2 weeks we drove to Washington, DC, stopping every city for a rally and a stayover, And now just jump ahead, and that whole experience politicized me to realize that the white man's not the enemy, because when we got to Washington, D.C., we saw poor Appalachians. They were poorer than us. Native Americans from the Navajo Dene Nation of Arizona, Puerto Ricans from the East Coast, blacks from all over. And we were all there together fighting for food, for jobs, for the welfare, for justice, the Poor People's Campaign. And to me, that politicized me, that this was a struggle of all working people against the system. And I didn't start using the word capitalism till later on,
And those that politicization and involvement got the attention of the authorities, and you were eventually infiltrated by the police, and that's the reason why you wound up in El Paso, yes?
No, that's true. You're right. So the Brown Berets, we did the walkout, the police killings. We did a major Chicano moratorium against the war in Vietnam. So we got infiltrated by the LEPD and the sheriffs, and to gather intelligence and destroy the organization. Fernando Sumaya was an agent provocateur, police agent recruited from the academy. He started advocating violence, using guns, fire bombings, and he did those types of acts, and we ended up started getting arrested, harassed. I got arrested over 10 times in the period of from '67 to '69 on political cases. And for example, on the walkout, we were indicted by the secret grand jury for conspiracy to disrupt the school system, and 4 out of 5 other felonies. And then in '69, we were arrested, 10 of us, conspiracy to commit arson against Ronald Reagan at the Nuevas Vistas conference at the Biltmore Hotel, in which Fernando Sumaya, the undercover cop, started the fires, right? And you know, when I was in prison, I was beat up by the sheriffs. When I was out of prison, I was threatened by the anti-terrorist squad, but back then they called it Special PD, Public Disorder Intelligence Division.
Why did you choose to go into exile rather than face trial at the time?
Well, for me, 3 reasons. They threatened my life. They said I was going to either kill me or spend the rest of my life in prison. And that was said to me directly by Sergeant Lee Ceballos. And then I was arrested over 10 times. I was spending my time in court, in and out of court. I was indicted by the grand jury twice. Okay, one right after the other. I was beaten up in the streets by the LAPD in Lincoln Heights. I was beaten up inside the county jail, right? And I had all these 2 indictments. We organized a strike at East LA College to demand Chicano studies. And the sheriffs came on campus and busted people and arrested people. And on my way home, they arrested me. They said I assaulted a cop. So I was on trial for that. And I was arrested also in a court. The first time we went to court on the Biltmore 610 case, where Fernando Sumaya was supposed to testify, the undercover cop, I was sitting in the courtroom, had a briefcase, and Sergeant Lee Ceballos, Sergeant Abel Armas, sat next to me and opened up his coat and just put his hand on his gun and looked at me. So I got up and went to the lobby to make a phone call to my job, saying I'm going to be late because I'm in court. And he comes out, Sergeant Abel Armas, with another cop in a suit, and they bust the door open to the phone booth where I'm sitting there making a call when they crush my legs and they push it open and try to pull me out and arrest me, right? But before they arrested me, the white cop tried to put a gun in my briefcase. But by that time, the brown beret woman, Lorena Escalante and Andrea and the other brown beret had come out and started yelling, and there was a tussle. And they saw him with the gun, and they, he got a gun, so he put it back in his pocket. So they arrested me for resisting arrest. Me and Lorena Escalante were arrested in a courtroom lobby for resisting arrest. And they took us in the back with handcuffs, and they laughed at us. So what my point is, I was living in fear for my life, and they say, I'm gonna use one of their words, I fear for my life. I mean, come on, getting arrested in court. They say I was trying to allegedly take out the. So
essentially.
So anyway, I jump bail. I said, fuck it.
Essentially, you realized that you were not going to get a fair trial because it was going to be the policeman's word against your word.
Yeah. I was either going to be dead. I was going to be either dead or spend the rest of my life in jail or beat up. Right. Yeah. And continue. And you're right.
So rather than go to some cushy place and have an office in Cuba, you decided to just go underground.
Well, you know what? In the very beginning, I did want to try to get to Cuba, but I ended up, me and my ex-wife Olivia ended up in Mérida, Yucatan. Mm-hmm. And when we got out of the Siete Flechas, when we came out of the air conditioning bus terminal, which was cold, we go outside and it's hot and humid. I see this beautiful jungle, beautiful city, and we say, fuck it, let's stay here. We were going to get a boat to go to Cuba. And then we rented a house for $20 in Mérida. We had this big old house with hamacas, and we bought hamacas in Mosquetero. And we said, well, fuck, let's stay here. This is beautiful. You know, Yucatan, right? was back in 1970. And we decided to stay there. I ran out of money, so I got a job at a hotel because I knew English. And then we got a small little apartment because the house was too big, for 2 people. And I started learning about the Mayan culture. I learned a little bit of the Mayan languages, a little bit, some more little. And I would hang out with the so-called mestizos, pero they were in Mayan families, right? And something funny happened. I ran out of money, so I used to go to the airport. The hotel sent me to the airport to greet the guests and bring them to the hotel, right? So I got to know the cab drivers, and they showed me how to make money with the tourists by organizing tours to Chichen Itza and Uxmal. So, because I was making, I think it was $2 a day at the hotel. 24 pesos, 24, I think the dollar was 12.50 pesos. So I started organizing tours to the Mayan ruins. Yeah. Imagine that, a Chicano from Juarez, East LA, organizing tours to Chichen Itza. Y Uxmal.
Well,
and I love it. I love the Mayan. I'm going to put it on the record. A mí me gusta aprender los mayas más que los aztecas. Okay, sorry.
All right. Now, eventually, you made it back into the States, into El Paso, but you didn't stay underground. You started organizing. You went to La Raza Unida Party Convention in 1972.
I sure did.
And you started organizing. Why? Is that how motivated you are?
Yeah, no, well, you know what? When I became conscious as a 19-year-old, I realized that that our people, Chicanos, Mexicanos, Mexico-Americanos, were oppressed in this racist U.S. system, and I realized that we had to fight back and organize back. And that stayed with me all the time, and the more I became involved, the more I became politicized, and I started realizing that this is a capitalist system, an imperialist system that we have to defeat and stop. And then, and learning from my mother, my grandparents, they were involved in the Mexican Revolution. My father was a Union man. So from Mérida, my ex-wife was born and raised in Boyle Heights, and I was raised in Juárez. So it kind of pulled us siempre la tierra donde naciste, ¿cómo se dice? Te llama. And so I went back to live in...
Yeah, but hold on. Before you go back to LA from El Paso.
No, we're in Juárez now.
Okay, Juárez, and then you go to El Paso, and then you attend La Raza Unida Party National Convention, and you get involved with the La Raza Unida Party Labor Organizing Committee. Tell us a little bit about your activities there, because they were quite extensive. You were quite an organizer in El Paso.
I know. Bueno, mira, me and my wife in El Paso, Juárez, we said we got to be involved, get organized, but we have to keep a low profile. When I was in the Brown Berets, I was a minister of information. I would speak at all the rallies, right? So we said, look, we're going to organize, but we can't be outspoken. So we started, I got a job in the carpenters. I was a construction. So I got in the carpenters union, started being active in the union. And I got elected to be a trustee of the union, working on the housing projects, as a carpenter, as an apprentice. And then I met people that were working on the FADA strike. And we helped organize Centro Obrero. Oh yeah, that's true. I met, during the FADA strike of 1972 that lasted for 2 years for union recognition, many of the United States new left groups sent cadre, their organizers, to build the strike and to recruit, like the RU, Revolution Union, October League, Sojourner Truth Organization, August 29 Movement, the Chicano group. So I met them, and we knew, when I say we're talking about Centro Obrero, Chuy Bustamante, Elvira, Olivia, who was the other guy? Chuy Bustamante's homie.
Urquizo.
What was his first name?
I don't remember him. Jose Urquizo, yeah.
So So I was already involved in the carpenters union, right, and organizing the construction, right, to promote the union, to get job sites, to have a union. And I'm trying to remember. Okay, so then I met people from the August 29 movement. These are Chicano communists, right? And I said, wow, I didn't know there was that many Chicano communists. I had met some communists in Juarez, right? And so I started, so they recruited me to be part of the 29 movement, Marxist-Leninists, because they sent Chicanos to El Paso to support the FARA strike. But remember, this was a little later on, not in 72, 70, I think that was a little later on, 73, 74, because you're right. When Partido Raza Unida had the convention at the El Paso Convention Center, me and Olivia attended. Our names back then, it was Manny Gomez and she was Celia Gomez. We attended, but we were way up in the bleachers looking down at everybody. I saw Kit Tejerina, I saw Jorge Gonzalez, Jose Angel Gutierrez, and I would see people that I knew from LA, but I could not talk to them because I had jumped bail. I was on the run. I was living on the ground. And we were paranoid that somebody would see us or somebody would say something that they saw us and they would go back to the LAPD.
Well, that was understandable. But as I remember, to prod your memory, you were involved in the Centro Obrero with Chuy Bustamante. You were involved in the Carpenters Union. You were involved in the Ramsey Steel strike. I don't know if you remember that. And then you were involved in the strike at the cannery, at the Mountain Pass Cannery.
That's true. You're right.
And then you led a campaign against police brutality out of a death by a young man named Fernando Campos, and you formed a committee and did a campaign to against police brutality. You were quite active.
I forgot about all of that. But you know what? You're right. We were active. But did you notice that I would get up at a rally, maybe a little bit, but I would say maybe Olivia was her real name, my ex-wife Celia. Did you notice I did in LA? I spoke at all the rallies, all the press conferences. I was the spokesperson for the Brown Race. I was very active because we felt the need for social. We were committed to the struggle for social justice, committed to the struggle for revolution, for freedom, for Chicanos and all working people, for Black people, for indigenous people. So you're right. I saw the oppression in El Paso, the racist, even worse than East LA. East LA is bad, but El Paso is worse. The low wages, the poverty, the racism, the lack of opportunities. So you're right.
Let me prod your memory again, okay?
All right, go ahead.
As I remember, you and several other people were organizing a coalition of labor organizers, some from the different strikes, some from the different unions, kind of like an expansion of the Centro Obrero.
Yeah.
And you were starting to have weekly meetings at a community center, and all these workers would show up, and then you got people from the Chicano movement involved, Chicanos Unidos, and it was a good coalition that was forming, and that's when you decided to visit LA, and then you got arrested.
Got busted. What was the name of that?
Why did you come back?
Huh?
So why that you were, all that work kind of crumbled without your leadership?
Wow, that's too bad. Yeah.
Why? Tell us about your comeback to LA. Tell us about your comeback to LA.
Yeah, no, what was the name of that coalition? Because I remember being in meetings. The workers, Chicano movement was there. You're right.
We didn't have a name for it yet. It was barely. It was about. Yeah, I was starting about 3 months into meetings when you got arrested.
Yeah, I remember the struggle of the Clínica Familiar del Barrio. I remember when Olivia.
La Fe Clinic. Yeah, you were heavily involved in that when we took over the clinic. We occupied the clinic facilities for corruption. We wanted a new board, And
Celia was there, stayed overnight, sitting. I was outside doing security with a shotgun with me and Chewy.
She almost got arrested too. She almost got arrested during when the police raided the facilities.
Yeah.
So you were not keeping a low profile.
We thought we were. I think now that I look back at it, we took a lot of chances. Too many chances, man. I'm surprised we didn't get busted earlier.
But the biggest chance you took is in visiting LA. Tell us what happened.
Okay, well, after 7 years, with me and also especially Olivia, her real name, kept pulling, she was born and raised in Ball Heights. She wanted to come visit the family. So we said, okay, it's been 7 years. Maybe things have cooled down. People forgot about it. Let's go visit. So we went to go visit my sister. And I think it was Gardena. We spent the weekend with her, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning. Everything was cool. But it was May, right? May of 77. We even went to Venice Beach, I think. But I think it was Saturday or Sunday, we went over to Monterey Park to visit our cousins. And they were having like a family barbecue. And the whole familia was there, a lot of people. And we said, oh, we had a barbecue. And then they said, let's go out, let's go out. Of course, Chicano, let's go out to a club. Let's go dancing. I said, okay, right. So I took a shower, was getting dressed. And the house was raided by the LAPD and the Monterey Park police with their bulletproof vests, dogs, and their automatic weapons. And, I had just gotten dressed. And then I looked there was a bunch of orote in the front door, and I saw cops outside the door. And oh, shit. So I tried to go out the side door. And I looked through the door window, and there's cops outside. Oh, shit. It's like a fucking raid, right? So I run out to the back of the house looking for a window to jump out. But the windows were not the kind you open there. They have those what do they call them, loops or slides?
Yeah.
Anyway, by that time, all the cops ran in, and then there was a cop, what was his name? Forget his name. And he put a gun on my belly, and he goes, you're under arrest. In one of the back bedrooms in Pobrecito, my son saw it, Reyes, and his cousins. They were all like shocked, And then they handcuffed me, pulled me out, and then all my cousins were yelling. Everybody was yelling, you can't do this, what are you doing? And this is my house. And they dragged me out and took me downtown and arrested me. Good thing they didn't arrest anybody else, but they told me in the car, look, we could have arrested those people because, they knew who you were, and we could have arrested everybody in there because they were, But yeah,
but this gives you an opportunity to bring justice to your own self, because you went to trial and you set the record straight.
That's true. You're right. We organized a free political prisoner campaign in solidarity with Native American Skyhorse and Mohawk, and also Geronimo Pratt and other Black political prisoners. So we went to trial. They kept offering me a deal. I said, no deal. We're going to go to trial. And we picked a jury in November and December of 1979. We were on trial for 2 months. Very stressful, very high stress, to say the least, on me and my family. Because initially, when I got arrested, I was in jail for about a month. They wouldn't give me any bail because they said I was going to run. I was going to run again. But I got bailed down. We put a defense committee. We organized a campaign, Justice for Carlos Montes. And after a 2-month trial, we picked a jury of mostly women and Blacks and Latinos. And they're the ones that saved my ass, the Blacks in the jury. I was found not guilty. I testified as to what happened at the Biltmore Hotel. And then the cop testified. He said that I set a fire. I said he set the fire. But he only accused me of 1 fire at the Biltmore Hotel in the restroom. Well, there were 3 or 4 other fires in the hotel. And the only people that had access to the hotel were the police, because they had Ronald Reagan, had the state police was there. They had state police up and down the hotel. They had them on the floors, LAPD. They already had fire people there. So I was found not guilty, yeah, and I continued my activism. But those 7 years that we lived in El Paso and Juarez were awesome. You know, I'll never forget them. We had met a lot of good friends like yourself, you know, Carlos and your whole family, and Chuy, and, you know, Elvira, and all the mujeres from the FARA strike and the Clínica and the Segundo Barrio. And I mean, you know, I guess now that I look back at it, we took a lot of risk. I didn't think we were taking risk. You know?
Well, let me tell you something. Okay, so you beat the case. You were found innocent. You brought justice. Obviously, the police had set you up. They started the fires, and then they blamed the Berets for the fires. So after you were found not guilty, you continued to organize. I remember 5 years, it was about 7 years ago. I went to LA for a visit, and I went to a restaurant, and there was this family there, and we started talking. And there was a Mexicano family. They were immigrants, but they had been in LA for quite a while. And then I told one of them, "¿Conocen a Carlos Montes?" And I remember the father distinctly saying, "Pues, ¿quién no conoce a Carlos Montes?"
Oh, my
So I know your activism has been, I mean, it's well known. Tell us about what, after you were found not guilty, tell us about your political life.
Well, I continue being active, right? I mean, you're talking like 79, 80, you know, I for the first year or two, I focused with my family, you know, on rebuilding that family, spending, you know, we had been uprooted from El Paso, and we had to reestablish our roots in LA. So I became active in the 80s with the Centro CSO, with CSO, and CSO had social programs. So we started being active in the early 80s was a struggle for immigrant rights. But I remember getting active in the Latinos for Jackson campaign. And I remember going to Morenci, Arizona for the national rally to support the steelworker union. And I think it was Phelps Scott. I remember going there with Reyes with a camera and filming it. I still got that on VHS. I got it converted. And but I became active with CSO. I became on the board. I was elected to the board of the credit union, and also to the chapter, LA chapter. And we started again taking up the issue of police killings. I remember there were several controversial killings. Eula Love, the black woman, Smokey Jimenez by the sheriff. David Angel Ortiz, a young teenager shot by the sheriff. So I became active working with the family and the lawyers like Miguel Garcia, but with CSO, and they were supportive of that campaign. And that was in the 80s, and then again 88. You know, Jesse Jackson ran again for president. We had the Latinos for Jackson again, but the Latinos for Jackson wasn't just a campaign to run for president. It was a grassroots effort to demand immigrant rights for all, stopping the deportation, and demanding an end to police killing, which is, you know, every year someone would be killed in the community. And then my children were raised. In the beginning, it was hard for me to get a job because I was still kind of considered a militant, a rebel. And I have to thank Mexican American Opportunity Foundation for giving me a job, helping so-called ex-offenders find jobs. I was a job developer, right? And then in the 90s, we continued that struggle against police killings.
Don't forget that Chicano. Don't forget the anniversary of the Chicano moratorium in 1990. That was huge.
I know, forgot all about it. No, you're right. In 1990. We formed a big coalition, the National Chicano Moratorium. We did a chapter in LA. There was a chapter in El Paso, San Diego, all over the Southwest, Colorado. And CSO was the base of operations, the office, the building. We would meet there, and we had the infrastructure, the credit union to support us, the membership. And you're right, 1990 was, was the biggest moratorium ever since the 1971, where we had 5,000 people marching to denounce the war in Vietnam, of the high capital, not only to commemorate the struggle.
And you were talking to the Janitors for Justice group that they supported that event, as I remember.
Yeah, we had union support. We had Janitors for Justice. We had different unions there. A lot of Mecha student groups were there. Even the Chicano artists were there, actors. And we produced a video of it, called 20 Years Decay. So we were trying to, protest the current conditions. I think we even the so-called Columbus Day celebrations. We talked about the police violence, the war in Iraq at that time. They were starting to threaten Iraq, right? Was it 1990, the first war?
Yeah, 1990.
Yeah.
And then, as I remember, the next wave that you were really involved in was the immigration rights.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Okay, let's see, 90 from, you know what, the Monday is a bad day for me, right? We should have did the interview on a Tuesday. But anyway, let's see. Okay, so, 1994, of course, that's the 187. We started in California. We had a wave of racist attacks with the governor, Pete Wilson, was Republican, the attorney general Republican, the vice president, they controlled Sacramento, right? So they came out with the English only initiative, Stop Affirmative Action, and then Prop 187 was to make it a criminal offense to be undocumented. So through CSO, we organized Defend of Our Communities, but we also helped organize the major mobilization against 187, which is the biggest mega march that occurred in modern history. 150,000 people marching from Boyle Heights, Cinco Puntos, to City Hall. But I'll give credit to the organization One Stop Immigration, SCIU 660, Gil Cedillo was the general manager there, and all the members and staff of One Stop Immigration at that time, which includes Pepe Jaques Medina was there, and Felipe Aguirre was there, and a bunch of other guys and mujeres that helped organize it. But with the support of Gil Cedillo, who was the general manager of SCIU 660, the big county union, he put all the staff and the money. So we had 150,000 people marching. I remember marching from Boyle Heights, Cinco Puntos. By the time I got downtown to the rally had almost halfway gone through already. It was the biggest mega march of modern times, And even though the 187 passed, the Chicano legal groups challenged it in court. It was found to be unconstitutional. But we still had English only, no affirmative action, and what the hell? So that created, with CSO, we started organizing more massive, we were already doing it, more massive learn English, citizenship classes, and people became citizens and by the millions and became registered voters and active voters. So in the period of the next 10 years, we turned California from a red Republican state to a blue Democratic state and started electing Democrats who were more pro-immigrant and got rid of the anti-immigrant. That was a big wave of the 90s.
Now then the next organizing effort that among many was the war in the Middle East. You became very active in protesting because there was the second Iraq War, there was the invasion of Afghanistan, and the wars that never, to this day, they haven't ended. But that got you in trouble. That got you in trouble, and again, you were raided and falsely accused. Can you tell us about that in the middle of the night, I believe?
Right. Okay, so then the CSO, the old guard, started dying away, and they were doing the social services. So then we had a new generation of young people in Boyle Heights that had been brought over by NAFTA, a whole new generation. And so the old guard of CSO died, and a lot of the money they used to get from grants went away. So we turned CSO back to original grassroots organizing in the late 90s, early 2000s. So we got rid of the DUI classes, the bingo fundraisers, and we went back to grassroots organizing. We started organizing parents and students in schools to clean up the schools, to keep the military recruiters out of the schools, and also against the police killing, because police killings happen all the time, right? So in the late 90s, early 2000s, we realized that the military was targeting our schools for recruiting students. So we did a campaign called Escuela Si, Guerra No, where we wanted to relieve the overcrowded conditions at the schools in Boyle Heights, like Roosevelt High School and Garfield High School in East LA. And we wanted to get the military recruiters off campus because, as you know, the Department of Defense would get the name and age and phone numbers of all the students because the school district gets money from the federal government. So by law, they give that data information to the Department of Defense. They would give it to the recruiters, and the recruiters would call home saying, "Hey, can I talk to your son or your daughter about joining the military?" And the parents nos llamaban y decían, "Ven, le están hablando para reclutarlo al ejército." So we did a campaign, and this is like in the early 2000s, and then CSO formed another group called Latinos Contra la Guerra. So we wanted to broaden it out to have a big coalition. So Latinos Contra la Guerra, we did a anti-military recruiting education, get the military off the campus, and then we did a big march in East LA in March of 2003. Before the war broke out, we had a big march, marching down Whittier Boulevard, saying, Escuela Si, Guerra No, Latinos Contra la Guerra. And then, of course, they invaded Iraq in that same year. So then we were part of the big 100,000 mobilizations in downtown LA. But we always made sure that Chicanos, that our voice was heard, that our issues were heard, because the first Marine killed in Iraq was a Guatemalan youth who was recruited by the Marines when he was 17 and didn't even have papers. He was undocumented. So we always brought up the issue of that we're still being killed in high numbers. They're still recruiting us, and they're sending us to and putting us in the most dangerous positions. But we always linked it to supporting the struggle of people in Iraq and Afghanistan or Asia to be free from U.S. imperialism.
So tell us about. It was a national raid. Several anti-war activist homes were raided that night, including yours.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, that was so in the early late 90s, I became associated with a group called Freedom Road Socialist Organization and Fight Back News Organization. So 2008, they invited me to a conference to mobilize to protest the Republican National Convention in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I said, yeah, let's do it. I went to a conference in January 2008 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it was 20 below, man, freezing my ass off. But we had a big conference. We organized So we organized a march on the RNC 2008. Forget what month it must have been during the summer. And every day we had a massive march, and our slogan was no money for war, no money for human needs, not for war. Stop the warmongers. Back then it was McCain ran. I think it was McCain.
McCain, yeah.
And was it Palin that ran with him? Was it Sarah Palin or who?
McCain Palin, yes.
So our slogan was money for human needs, not for war. And the opening day of the Republican Convention, we led a massive march, and we had a sit-in, and many of our members of the March on the RNC. It was a big coalition, the Anti-War Committee of Anti-War Committee of Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Welfare Rights Organization, Freedom Road, ASME Union, SEIU, had hundreds, student group, SDS, of course CSO was there, and we had the Filipino contingent, Native Americans, the Blacks. We did a massive march all week long. We disrupted the RNC, and we were infiltrated by the FBI. They sent, we didn't know, of course, till later on that we had been infiltrated. They infiltrated the Anti-War Committee in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They sent a woman, of course, a lesbian woman, to say, oh, that I've been abused, and I suffered abuse as a woman, as a lesbian. So they, opened up the door, the arms to her, welcomed her to be part of the Anti-War Committee. She infiltrated the Anti-War Committee. She infiltrated the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, and would have meetings at her house where everything was taped and filmed. So that was 2008. Okay, when did I get busted? What year was that? 2011. That was a little later on, right? So what happened is that I continued my activism, against the war, with CSO, with the Latinos contra la Guerra. I traveled to Colombia. We started to not only denounce the war in Iraq, but we started to support the struggle of people fighting for freedom in the Philippines, Palestine, and Colombia, right? So I went in a delegation to Colombia at least twice, and to learn about the struggles of indigenous people, Afro-Colombianos, but labor activists from Coca-Cola. There was a struggle in Colombia to unionize the Coca-Cola workers. And what happened with them is that the Coca-Cola company hired a security company who hired assassins to shoot and kill the Coca-Cola workers and to stop the union. And some of them had to flee to the United States. So, I learned about that struggle, about the violation of human rights in Colombia. So when I came back to LA, I participated in forums, community groups, at colleges, and denouncing Plan Colombia by the Clinton administration and denouncing the Colombian government for its violation of human rights, the kidnapping, the killings, the false positives, they call false. They would kidnap indigenous and peasant young youth campesinos and dress them in fatigue, rebel fatigues, and kill them and say that they were rebels, right? So there were false killings just so they can get a recognition and compensation. So I lobbied, I met with, with Congresswoman Lucia Roybal, Marty Martinez, but was a congressman, that was way back, to say, the U.S. should not support Plan Colombia, get out of Plan Colombia, and that the Colombian people have a right to self-determination. I didn't go to Palestine, but I have activist friends who went to Palestine and saw the conditions of Palestinians there. I had friends who had gone to the Philippines and to learn about the conditions of the peasants and the struggle for democracy and land reform in the Philippines, right? So through Fight Back News, the Anti-War Committee, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, we denounced the U.S. imperialism in support support of the Colombian military government, the government of the Philippines, and also supporting Israel against the Palestinian struggle to the right of return.
Essentially, you're following the same pattern. You're very active. Your political awareness is expanded, and then the authorities begin infiltrating your organization.
That's true, and they arrested us. So they raided me. They raided. Okay, what year were we raided? I was raided 2011.
2011.
Okay, I was raided 2011, but they raided them in 2010 first. I think they raided the 23 first. They raided activists from Freedom Road, at the Work Committee, Fight Back News, the unions in Chicago, Minnesota. They visited one brother in San Jose, and they took all their files, computers, phones. And then with me, I was raided in May of 2011. And I should have seen it coming, you know, but you know, because it's kind of interesting. One time I thrown out my trash, right? And I threw a bunch of paper, and I saw a young Chicano in the truck going through my trash can, you know. At first I thought, are you recycling or what? Because people do go through trash cans to get the aluminum cans, the glass cans. And, you know, por pendejo, it was probably the fucking FBI going through the trash cans, you know. And then also one day I saw somebody parked in a car across the street. But it looked like a young Chicano in an old car. So, you know, probably, you know, coming to meet a girl or just whatever.
Now, I just want to say something before you explain, because a lot of people don't realize these raids are not like they knock on your door and then they ask you questions. These are raids where they come in the middle of the night, they knock down doors, they take everything you have, everything, without even asking you, and then they arrest you.
Yeah, and almost shoot you. Yeah, they busted the door down at 5 in the morning. I was asleep in my bed, you know, and bam, I heard this loud crash, boom, you know, and I jump out of bed and I'm in shock with and I yell, what is it? ¿Qué pasó? I go, for some reason instinctively I yell, who is it or what is it? And then they say, it's the police. Oh, and I go, oh, fuck. As soon as I heard police, I said, I'm gonna get shot. So I instantly raised my hands up, you know, because I have guns in my bedroom, right, for self-defense, legally registered guns. So I figured, shit, they're going to use that as an excuse to shoot me. So I raised my hands, and all I saw was the flashing light. I saw helmets, and I saw M16s with people with bulletproof vests pointing at me, rushing in. They knocked down the front door to the living room. They came through the kitchen into my bedroom and grabbed me and arrested me, dragged me out. I was in my pajamas, my little beanie was, you know, and they took me out to the porch. When I got to the porch, I looked down. Oh my God! I saw 4 or 5 police cars. I saw one of them that looked like a armored vehicle, the SWAT team, LA County Sheriff SWAT team. And a bunch of sheriff cars, and all my neighbors in their porch looking out. And I go, oh shit, what the hell is this, right? But I would tell you one funny thing before I go on is that for some reason my mother always used to put a chair in the front door, you know, in case somebody tried to get in. So I did that too. I used to do that all the time. So me pegó de mi mamá. My mamá was always a little paranoid, you know. She always said, put a chair so they can't open the door. So I had put a chair on the front door to hold the door open. I mean, closed, right? So in case somebody tried to open it. So evidently, when they used a battering ram to hit the door open, it broke the door in half because they hit it, and then the chair inside held it back, so it cut the whole door in half. Anyway, Channel 52 Telemundo came a day or two later and they filmed all that. Gabriel Huerta, the reporter from Telemundo, has it all. And they went in my house, they ransacked the whole house, they took computer files, my cell phone computers, memory sticks and albums, photo albums. They tore up the photo album. And this was, later I found out it was the sheriff and the FBI came in. Because what happened, they handcuffed me and they put me in the back seat of a car, right? So there I am at 5:15 in the morning, like, what the fuck happened, right? Catching up. And then they eventually come and go, oh, somebody wants to talk to you. And I go, what? So then they open the back door. I'm in the back door. They open the door, and this white guy in a windbreaker, long blonde hair, and a baseball cap comes up. And they go, he wants to talk to you. And I go, who is this guy, right? And who is this dude? And he goes, forget the exact words, but he said, I'm with the FBI. And I go, what? And I go, oh, fuck. So this is what it's all about. And then he goes, I want to talk to you about Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And I go, what? That's it. And I'm thinking to myself, nobody's going to believe this shit, you know. And I'm handcuffed with my hand. And I go, and I tell the guy, I go, do you have a card? Do you have a card? I wanted to get a fucking card out of him. I could show people. And he looks at me, I have no card. I have no card. You don't want to talk to me. I know that. You don't have the card. So he walked away, right? But a few days later, we got it. The sheriff's public relations put out a statement to the press saying that this was an FBI operation. They were doing it because the FBI had requested it. They were just assisting the FBI, you know. So
but eventually you got justice again.
Yeah. So I got justice. I went to trial in this was that same year. Damn, the case went pretty fast. We organized another committee, just free Carlos Montes, and all my friends from the Senate say, "Oh, not again, otra vez, híjole, como chingas, you know." And I go, hey, you know, it was not up to me getting arrested. This is a political frame-up. They were attacking me because of my political activism, of organizing on the ground, but also denouncing the RNC and also supporting the struggles of the Colombianos. The search warrant that they used was a long warrant, but had two sentences that I was being investigated for being a domestic terrorist, for providing material support to terrorist organizations, the FARC and the PFLP. And the FARC is the Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia, and the PFLP is the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. It said that on the warrant, and it's public. I have a copy of it. That's why they were investigating me. That's why they raided my house. And the excuse they used that I had purchased a gun the year before, legally registered gun, and the FBI accused me of buying a gun that I shouldn't have bought a gun because back in 1969, one of my arrests was for a felony conviction, which I said, no, it wasn't felony, it was a misdemeanor. So it was like, that was the whole argument. Was it a misdemeanor or was it a felony? So they said, and I had been buying a gun, you know, in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. You know, I had bought guns, and they had gone through the Department of Justice of California, a background check, and they had.
So basically, you legally purchased guns, yes, which the NRA would applaud you for.
Yes, they would.
And they try to use this as an excuse to put you away again.
Yeah.
But you finally got free of all of that, yes?
I did. I did another campaign, Free Carlos Montes, got international support. I was in the Democracy Now! Video with Amy Goodman. I got support from unions, SEIU. It was a wide range. I got support from the Filipinos, the Palestinian movement in Chicago. turned it into a campaign, and we came out bigger and stronger. Fight Back News, Freedom Road, the anti-war committee center, CSO, we came out bigger and better and more stronger.
So
and I beat the charges. And I continued organizing.
So right now you're free. You don't have any paper behind you. Nothing. Good.
At all. Nothing at all.
And you're getting ready to be on the board that the LA DA, the district attorney, right, has asked you to be on the board because of police brutality.
A committee. They call it a consultative committee. They have a fancy name for it. Yes, I align and work with Black Lives Matter. As a matter of fact, I have a poster up here. I should have showed you now. Well, but I got the virtual background. No, I strongly support and believe that we have to unite and work with the Black liberation movement. I learned that from way back, right? Because they've always supported Chicanos for our movement for liberation. So here in LA, when Black Lives Matter started 7 years ago, we supported them. And 3 years ago, they started a campaign which we supported to get rid of the Jackie Lacey district attorney, who for 8 years has been over 628 killings by police of Blacks and Chicanos and Centro Americanos, and she never prosecuted, I think, but one. So we did a campaign to get rid of her, and Black Lives Matter did a full campaign, which we told her to get out the vote, marches and rallies, billboards. We got rid of Jackie Lacey. We got a new DA. His name is George Gascon, and his platform is to stop the mass incarceration of young Chicanos and Blacks, and he's already as of December 7th, he got rid of cash bail. He got rid of the enhancements, gang enhancement, gun enhancement. He's already hiring new attorneys. He's forming a unit within the district attorney's office to look at police killings. He's also not going to try teens as adults or put them in adult prison. He's instituting major progressive reforms, which are our reforms of the Chicano Black movement, right? Because in California, we face mass incarceration of our brown and Black youth. Our prisons are full of thousands and thousands of our young men and women. So he is not only a fresh or best there, he is committed to reforms, and he formed a committee, a consultative committee. Forget the exact name. I'd have to look it up on the computer. It just formed last week.
Say his name again. Say the
District Attorney George Gascon.
He's a former policeman, right? He's a former policeman.
No, he was an LAPD policeman here in LAPD, and he was in charge of training programs. And then he moved down to Arizona and was the chief of police. I don't know what city. May have been Phoenix. I don't have to look that up. I should know that.
I think it was Tucson, but anyway. So now you're working with the police.
No, I'm working with the DA, and keep in mind this is a DA that is talking about dismantling the systemic racist incarceration of Blacks and Browns.
And of course, you're going to keep it.
Which is unheard of.
And of course.
And the police departments, the LAPD and the sheriff are trying to sabotage him. The police, the district attorneys that work in his department are suing him already. He's only been there 3 weeks. His own employees, the District Attorneys Association, is suing him to stop him, right? And even some judges are refusing to follow his orders or policy, right? And the Police Protective League at the LAPD group, as well as the sheriff, has the Association of LA Sheriffs, are trying to stop him. So we got a battle here. Yeah.
So you're of course supporting him, and you're going to serve in that committee. But I gather that you're not going to stop there. You're going to keep organizing and make sure that.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, because we're only going to look at cases, old cases that were closed by the former District Attorney Jackie Lacey, and that the families have already finished the civil rights lawsuits. Any brand new cases, we got new cases this year. Andres Guandalo was killed by the sheriff in I think March of this year. We got Dijon Deasy was killed by the sheriff this year, a young black man. We have assassin gangs within the sheriff's department, like the East LA Sheriff has those banditos. And then in Compton, they have the enforcers. In Linwood, they got the Vikings. These are gangs that today are sheriff gangs. They're killing people that we're looking for Gascon this year to investigate and prosecute, right? Now, the committee that I'm in, we're looking at the old cases from Jackie Lacey's, right? So we're still advocating. We work with many families in East LA and Bull Heights who've lost their sons to LAPD.
Bueno, we're getting ready to wrap up.
Okay.
It's been a great great to talk to you. I want to give you opportunity to say something to those young activists that are barely starting, like my daughter. She's a young activist in El Paso.
How old is she?
Well, I call her young. She's in her 30s. So there's a lot of youth who are starting to become activists now. A message of hope, a message of inspiration from somebody who's still not finished yet.
I'm just warming up. I'm going down fighting all the way. But my message is that, you know what, do it. Don't take no for an answer. Their time here on this earth is going to go very fast. So don't hesitate to fight for your rights, for your family, for your community. It's a long struggle, but we all got to do it collectively, and we want you to do your part. So then when you're old like me, you can say, yeah, I'm still active. I contributed to the fight for social justice, for Chicano power, for Black power, for working class power. So, si se puede, it's an old cliche, but yes, it can be done. You can do it. You're one person, but always work collectively. Join an organization. Don't try to do it by yourself, whether it's a student group, a community group, a union group, a socialist group, international group. Be part of an organization. Don't do it by yourself. And then, viva la revolución, viva la causa.
All right. Muchas gracias.
Let me see if I can change my background in the back. Okay, look.
All right.
Can you